form of racing into this one?
Yeah, it's super hard. It's just, there's a lot of different factors. I think the physical side of it plays a huge part, but also, and I think it plays a part with your timing as a driver. When you have like power steering in a stock car, your reactions can be so much quicker because you're not fighting against the wheel, and I think that's something that's huge here that makes it a lot more difficult.
Hailie Deegan's racing journey has taken another unexpected turn. As the daughter of motocross legend Brian Deegan, she's now facing perhaps her biggest challenge yet. The transition from NASCAR to INDY NXT has begun with troubling signs that mirror her previous struggles. HMD Motorsports president Mike Marini recently said, "Hailie, and especially the Deegan name, are huge in motorsports, and we welcome them to the HMD Motorsports family." These welcoming words marked what was supposed to be a fresh chapter for the 23-year-old driver. But behind the optimistic press releases lies a more complicated reality. Deegan's NASCAR exit wasn't the triumphant next step in a rising career. Her partnership with AM Racing dissolved midway through the 2024 season after consistently disappointing results. The unceremonious replacement by Cup Series champion Joey Logano in July spoke volumes about where things stood. Her recent comments about her new team raised questions about her previous NASCAR experience. Deegan stated in a recent interview, "HMD has been amazing. They're such a professional team and they definitely have their stuff together." The implications aren't subtle. Was this a direct criticism of AM Racing's operations? The contrast she draws between the teams is difficult to ignore. AM Racing struggled with internal challenges throughout Deegan's tenure. Her first crew chief, Joe Williams, was replaced by Matt Lucas, a change that didn't improve her results. In fact, her performance was notably better under Williams. These organizational issues created a difficult environment for a developing driver. Now, Deegan faces an entirely different challenge. The move to open-wheel racing represents a dramatic shift from everything she's known in her professional career. The Indy NXT series demands different skills, different physical preparation, and different race strategy. These cars are hard to drive, Deegan admitted to motorsports reporter Jamie Little before her first practice session. "I've had to change the way I work out, trying to make up the muscle. My hands are small, and they want to fall off the wheel." This physical challenge isn't something to be underestimated. NASCAR and IndyCar require fundamentally different physical attributes from their drivers. Deegan herself acknowledged this fundamental difference when speaking with Xiomara Gerardo. She said, "I've always been into fitness. I've always loved working out, but it's not something I ever needed for NASCAR, ever. Like, it's one of the most unphysical forms of racing, to be honest. When it comes to the IndyCar and Indy NXT side of things, it is so much more physical, which I love. I love being able to train with a purpose. Before, I was just training to be in shape and be healthy."
Saying about how you're so new to Indy NXT, this open wheel kind of area, has there been any changes to like your training or like lifestyle that you've noticed so far?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been into fitness. I've always loved working out, but it's not something I ever needed.
Her training regimen has shifted dramatically, with new emphasis on upper body strength to handle the physical demands of the Indy NXT cars. But has this preparation been enough? The results from her first official practice session suggest otherwise. Deegan finished dead last 21st in the St. Petersburg practice, a concerning 4.7517 seconds behind leader Dennis Hauger. Even more troubling, she was 2.5 seconds behind the 20th place finisher Nikita Johnson. For comparison, her best lap time was 1 minute 9.9742 seconds, while Hauger posted 1 minute 5.2225. Her top speed lagged significantly as well, with a 6.7 miles per hour deficit compared to the leader. These aren't small margins in racing terms, they represent a massive gap in performance. What makes this even more concerning is that Deegan was significantly slower than teammates with similar equipment. She finished 3 seconds behind fellow rookie teammate Sophia Florsch. Does this point to a driver issue rather than an equipment problem? We've seen this pattern before. During her NASCAR Xfinity Series stint with AM Racing, Deegan consistently finished in the low 20s and high 30s during her 2023 season. She remained winless throughout that campaign despite entering with high expectations. The parallels are difficult to ignore. A high-profile driver with a famous last name switches to a new racing discipline with optimism, only to find herself at the back of the pack once again. Is history repeating itself? Deegan has been candid about the steep learning curve she faces. She said, "It's a big challenge, for sure. It's a different challenge. It's different to anything that I have been used to. I know there's not been many that have transitioned from stock car to open wheel like I'm trying to do, especially full time, so I know it's going to be a challenge. It'll be hard at first. She's right about the rarity of this transition. Even racing legend Jimmy Johnson struggled when attempting to move from NASCAR to IndyCar. The skills simply don't transfer as easily as some might expect. The steering, braking points, acceleration curves, everything changes. When you have power steering in a stock car, your reaction can be so much quicker because you're not fighting against the wheel. I think that's something that's huge here that makes it a lot more difficult. St. Petersburg presented additional challenges for her debut. Street courses are notoriously difficult, especially for drivers unfamiliar with them. There are lots of factors that St. Petersburg has been throwing at me. "We didn't test this track," she said before the practice session. Her preparation was further hampered by the lack of simulator options. Since the St. Petersburg street course isn't available on the popular racing simulation platform iRacing, Deegan couldn't even practice virtually before arriving. This contrasts sharply with her new team's typical approach. HMD Motorsports is known for their structured, data-driven methodology that attracts top-tier talent. They provide extensive testing opportunities and advanced data analysis, resources that should theoretically help Deegan develop. At AM Racing, testing opportunities and simulator resources were reportedly limited. This was allegedly a point of contention during her time with the team. Now with HMD Motorsports, she has access to a larger pool of experienced drivers and more sophisticated technical resources. But will these advantages translate to on-track performance? The early indicators aren't promising. 3 days of testing before her debut clearly wasn't sufficient to close the substantial gap between her and the competition. This has led to a very modest approach to her INDY NXT debut. I think my goal is to get through this one, have a clean, easy day for this race, and then really start going from there. Such tempered expectations stand in stark contrast to the excitement that typically surrounds a driver of her profile making a series debut. Has reality set in? Is she already acknowledging the limitations she faces? Deegan also mentioned communication challenges with her new team, noting that there is a bit of a language barrier, given some of the racers are not local. The timing of Deegan's move to INDY NXT came after serious career setbacks. She said this after parting ways with AM Racing. "Beginning this season, I had a lot of excitement and hope. Unfortunately, it has not turned out the way that I expected." After failing to secure sponsorship that would allow her to continue in NASCAR, the IndyCar route represented one of the few available paths to maintain a professional racing career. This wasn't necessarily her first choice. In fact, Deegan revealed that the decision came together rather quickly. She considered returning to the Truck Series or finding partial season opportunities in NASCAR. The conversation with her sponsors must have been difficult. The switch to an entirely different racing discipline meant leaving behind years of development in stock car racing. But according to Deegan, they were super understanding, which was really